So I'm going to take a minute and get myself together. All right, now I'm ready. Okay. According to dictionary.com, a father is a man in relation to his biological child. My dad checks off on that one. Another working definition for a father is someone who makes hard decisions for his family. And my dad checks off on that because when I was very little, about 7 years old, my mom ran away for 6 months because of her afflictions with bipolar and schizophrenic disorder. My dad had to make the decision that it was no longer safe for me to be with her. And because of that, because of the circumstance that we had found ourselves in, my dad became a single father. And that's not easy. The last definition that I can think of for a father is someone who aids in the nurturing and development of their child. And I'm not too bad. So, but did he really fit that? Well, one of the earliest lessons my dad ever taught me was that the jerks will always be jerks. But how did he come to learn this bit of wisdom to share with his only daughter? Well, in high school, my dad was in band class, and he had a buddy in band class with him, and they played percussion, and so did two girls who didn't know how to read music at all. And so they followed along with my dad and his friend. And so one day, my dad and his pal thought it would be a fun prank to act like they were going to play 4 measures early. So these girls crashed their cymbals, and they're crying because they realized they were way too soon. And then the band teacher sends my dad and his friend out in the hallway to do push-ups, and he's talking to the girls, and he's like, "Don't you worry about them. They're jerks, and they're always going to be jerks." So, my dad wasn't really supposed to change much. And maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But when I was little, we would play Powerpuff Girls together, and I would be Blossom and Bubbles and Buttercup, because being an only child has its drawbacks. And my dad would usually be the sleeping monster. And to put it in his words, that's kind of lame. And then, if we fast forward a little bit, I'm 14 years old now, and I'm going through a lot. High school's starting, and I just come out by accident to my stepmom. I had a girlfriend. And so she, with fully good intentions, went and told my dad. And we all kind of ignored it for a little while because we didn't know who knew, and so we didn't want to talk about it. And then one night at dinner, Elena, my stepmom, she, brings it up again with fully good intentions and says, "So, Chris, what do you think about Esmere being a lesbian?" And that sparked this whole conversation that I didn't want to have, and my dad didn't want to have, and then it ended up with him saying, "I think it's fine, but I just don't think that you should go around telling a whole bunch of people right now, because you might change someday." And me, being an all-knowing, angst-ridden, as my father predicted earlier in life, rotten teenager, thought, how in the world could he not accept me? Why wouldn't he just say that, that's great, I'm glad, live your life, man? Especially when his best friend in the world was a lesbian. And I sat with that resentment for a long time. Until later on, I had this English project at school, and we had to write about a disagreement that we had had with our parents, and I wrote about this little incident. And my parents read that project, and that created a whole nother unwanted conversation, but this one was definitely necessary. By the end of it, my dad had said, "Ezzy, it really hurt me that you wrote that, because that whole time I was talking to Steph and her girlfriend, and I was trying to figure out what I could do to make you feel loved and accepted and to make sure that you were going to be okay." And that's when I realized my dad was never a jerk. Even in high school when he played pranks on people, that wasn't being a jerk, that was just having good humor. Even when we played Powerpuff Girls and he was the sleeping monster, that wasn't lame, that was being ingenious. After a long day of working hard, my dad still found a way to play with me. And when I came out, it wasn't the first time. I did end up changing. I have a lovely boyfriend now. But him being protective and cautious wasn't being insensitive and indifferent. It was just looking out for his little girl. And that's what it all comes down to. Whether I realized or not, whether I appreciated it or not, my dad has always been there for me. And he's always taught me to do the right thing, to follow my dreams, to live my life and be who I am. He's taught me to always persevere in the darkest of times. And that's why he's my hero.